Namaste. Welcome to another episode of Nava Vimarsh podcast. So, Namaste Deepda. Namaste Avishekda.
Namaste, namaste.
So, today we are honored to have two of the uh, best persons who can talk about Bangladesh and the issues with Bangladesh. After 5th August, there has been a lot of coverage regarding the Hindus of Bangladesh and the persecution they have been suffering post 5th August. And with that regard, there has been a lot of written about it. So in front of me, you can see there are two books. One is a Bengali book called Bangladeshi Hindu, Hindu there Bangladesh. This is a Bengali translation of an older book written by Dr. Avishek Biswas and Mr. Deep Halder. Uh, yeah. So these two books, uh, they have been written a lot. So this book was written long time ago, but the relevance of these books and the discussions we will have today are still relevant today in so many ways. So first of all, I would just like to request our guests, Mr. Deep Haldar and Mr. Abhishek, to just give a bit of intro about themselves, and then they can talk about the Bengali translation specifically. What was the need for this book to be translated into Bengali? Deepda.
Well, I'm currently a contributing editor with the print. I've been a journalist for more than 2 decades. I write books occasionally. This and the Bengali translation is in thanks to a large measure to Dr. Biswas, who happens to be to be a younger brother to me, and it's his passion and dedication towards his academic material, in this case, the Hindus of Bangladesh, and my abiding interest in our neighboring country, which happens to be the origin story of both of us, because our families are refugee families from what was East Bengal, which later became East Pakistan and is known as Bangladesh. So it's our collaboration that gave rise to the book. I don't know about Abhishek, but I would not like to think of myself as one of the best persons to talk about Bangladesh. Since the fall of Sheikh Hasina, everybody on TV today is a Bangladesh expert. It's a very complex country to understand. Abhishek and I have done a fair bit of research and fair number of visits across the length and breadth of Bangladesh, and we have also come up with a book which was received well. But to say, I don't know about Abhishek, but I think you would agree with me. But to say that we are experts, I think would not be fair, because it's a country. Like I said, it's a country. This book, of course, looks at it through the prism of the minority population of Bangladesh, that is the Hindus. And like I said, it's a subject that we are both very close to. But also, what I said, that it's in large measure because of Abhishek's academic rigor, the long hours of research that he put in, and the little bit of reporting experience that I had gathered over the last 20 years. That the book we could come out with this book. Abhishek,
Yes.
Abhishek, you want to talk about it?
Dr. Abhishek, can you hear us? Uh, Dr. Abhishek, are you able to hear us? I think there is some network issue with his video is frozen.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, okay. I think let him be back. Okay, I'll just
Okay.
message him. Okay.
Hmm.
So before we go ahead and further on our discussion, so a request to everybody. I think many of you know Deepda, who is a contributing editor to the print, and you have seen a lot of videos, YouTube videos of him. Abhishek, da, are
Abhishek
you
is there.
able to hear us?
Yeah, yes. I can hear now.
Abhishek, if
Yeah.
you introduce
Disconnected for
yourself
a
and
few seconds.
talk a little bit about the books.
Yeah. So could you just give us to the
Yeah, I
audience who
think
are? Hmm.
yeah, I think let me just start with exactly where the left. I mean, because you're talking about the idea of whether we are experts in this field. We are not. We are not experts because it's very difficult to be expert in kind of an ever-changing geopolitical and socio-cultural aspect of a country, which is not going through a very stable time. It's very difficult. Most importantly, people have started becoming expert after 5th August. I have seen new people emerging in this field and giving their comments and feedbacks and suggestions and advices after 5th August. Let me tell you, and also the viewers of your channel, that we haven't written this book after 5th August. That's most important thing. We haven't written this book after 5th August of 2024. We were traveling in the country in, say, post-COVID period. This was 2021, 22, 23, and we came up with this book in 2023 November. Um, Possibly the only success that this book can have in a true sense is the fact that this book possibly anticipates a lot in this way or the other that has happened post 5th August. This book is a kind of a prelude to what has happened. And trust me, neither Deepda nor Abhishek Biswas, we didn't really think that this would happen so early, but we were possibly kind of getting a sense that things are not really as good as one would otherwise expect in a country. তো সেই দিক থেকে আমরা চেষ্টা করেছিলাম যে আমাদের ট্রাভেল, আমাদের লাইব্রেরি ওয়ার্ক, আমাদের আর্কাইভাল ওয়ার্ক, আমাদের লোকজনের সাথে কথা বলা, সেটা নিয়ে আমাদের একটা বই যদি আসে। এবং যেটা দীপদা রাইটলি শুরু করেছিল যে we are having this refugee blood that um, possibly made us walk together, but it is most likely the fact that we were talking you know about too many things, Deepda and me. Before we came to write this book, we were sort of in agreement with a lot of things. I was a great fan of his first book. I was doing my PhD these days, and I read Blood Island. I became a great fan of the writer Deep Halder. I thought something like this was always on the cards. It was written on the wall, but nobody was willing to read this. And as I was researching on Modi Chapi, I thought mostly the things are either like an Amitabh Ghosh writing a fiction, or you get something like the newspapers. And where would you get the oral testimonies of the people who suffered? And when I was going through this drought-like situation in this field of research, I found this book. In fact, that is exactly what brought us together. I met this writer. He was not my Deepda then. He was writer Deep Halder then, and we started talking about these things. And then gradually, one day he suddenly told me that let's write a book about Bangladesh. No doubt about the fact that it is his brainchild. Um, I instantly said, without thinking anything, that let's write. Possibly this is because I've told some other places as well. I told at some other places as well that this is because I have grown up by listening to these stories. These are the lullaby tales, of my childhood. So I thought, let's write this book. এবং আমরা এই বইটা লেখার জন্য উম, অনেকটা সময় দিয়েছি বাংলাদেশের মানুষকে বোঝার জন্য। আহ, অনেকের সাথে ঘুরেছি অ্যাক্রস রিলিজিয়াস লাইন্স। মাথায় রাখতে হবে যে আমরা বাংলাদেশের হিন্দুদের নিয়ে বই লিখেছি, কিন্তু আমরা বাংলাদেশের হিন্দুদের সাথে শুধু কথা বলিনি। কিন্তু that is the first thing that the people should remember when they read this book. We have um, talked to people across socio-cultural lines, across religious lines. We have talked to the big guns of Bangladesh, the eggheads of Bangladesh. We talked to the common people of Bangladesh as well. আমরা বাংলাদেশের রিক্সা চালকদের সাথে কথা বলেছি, আম, আম, চিত্রশিল্পীদের সাথে কথা বলেছি, আমরা রাইটারদের সাথে কথা বলেছি। এমনও হয়েছে আমরা সকালবেলায় বাংলাদেশের প্রখ্যাত লেখক সালাম আজাদের সাথে কথা বলেছি। সন্ধ্যাবেলায় আমরা অপু বিশ্বাসের সাথে দেখা হয়েছে একটা ক্যাফেতে গিয়ে। তাহলে আমরা অ্যাক্রস লাইনস, আমরা নোয়াখালীর একটা প্রত্যন্ত গ্রামে গেছি, আমরা ঢাকার পাশের একটা ক্যাফেতে বসে লোকজনের সাথে কথা বলেছি, আমরা কক্সবাজারের ভালো জায়গায় গিয়ে কথা বলেছি লোকজনের সাথে, আমরা চট্টগ্রামের মন্দিরে গিয়ে কথা বলেছি, আমরা রমনা কালীবাড়িতে গিয়ে কথা বলেছি, আমরা আহ মসজিদের পাশে দাঁড়িয়ে ঢাকার পলিটিক্যাল লোকেদের সাথে কথা বলেছি, মসজিদের ভেতরে গিয়েও কথা বলেছি। So we have been through this country. তাই সেভাবে বোঝার চেষ্টা করেছি। um, এবং এটা it's sad, it's not a very happy conclusion to this thing, that what we um, feared in terms of Bangladesh has become truth. We're not happy about it. We really didn't want that to happen, but that has happened. Something that this book prophecies, this is exactly what we are getting now.
Yes. Let me just tell you a little bit more about what we have done. So when the CSK, Nirajanda of CSK actually shared the news about this Bengali translation, so from our Nava Vimarsh platform, what we did was we actually reached out to the publisher and procured about 20 copies of the book, okay, because it was not available online. And from our end, we had sent out these books, the Bengali translation books, to various libraries, to common people in Bengal who read Bengali. And we gave this book free of cost to everybody who wanted to read. And we actually sought reviews from them, the common Bengali people of West Bengal, and asked them to give their reviews, what they think about the book and what they have learned. So one of the response that we have received. So let me just share you that response that we have received. So you are the author. So I think it's appropriate that I will share the response on the Twitter, and I will share it with you as well with the audience. And there are many people like this who have actually read the book, and somewhere down the line, it has actually changed their perspective about us. So this is one of the reviews that we have received from. So this is a book review by Mr. Mr. Nirmal Bhattacharya. He is a retired banker, Vivekananda Kendra Paschim Bango, Kontho Sangchalak, Ekal Vidyalaya secretary. So we had given the book to him to read and tell what they think about the book. This is his book review. The book is simple and elegant in its language, but the emotions which comes out while reading it is very jarring and depressing. It actually tells us about the horrible conditions in which the Hindus have to live in Bangladesh. All credits to the author, because this book reminds us about the suffering and perhaps acts as an alarm to wake up and stay vigilant. So we have actually got many more reviews which we will receiving from the people who have sent the book, and we will be sharing the reviews with our audience on Twitter and also in our future streams. So like whatever you have done a great job to actually give the people of Bengal, especially people of Bengal in West Bengal, a kind of a mirror which actually they can see what's happening in Bangladesh with the on ground effort of you traveling to Bangladesh, talking to every strata of people and giving the information which is normally not available to everybody in West Bengal. So a big thank you to both of you for doing this amazing and great work to give us a document which actually can become a kind of a repository of knowledge on Hindus of Bangladesh. Deepda.
Well, firstly, I mean, a heartfelt thank you to you for taking this effort, to have Abhishek and me in your podcast, and also to reach out to our publisher and distribute the books, and to Mr. Bhattacharya whose review you read out. I think that's all our thanks to him, and I mean that's the best reward that Abhishek and I can possibly expect. That readers like Mr. Bhattacharya has taken the trouble to read the book and has given such a such a heartfelt review, and which is so great to read, and which is all the encouragement, right, that writers like him and I can possibly hope for. Having said that, yes, what he said, that the language may be lucid, but the truth is horrific. It was very difficult for Abhishek and me. I have some experience in, as a journalist, dealing with uncomfortable spaces and listening to survivors. Abhishek has been dealing with this the subject of partition for a while, but he's still an academic. So I think when he went out in Bangladesh with me to talk to survivors, I could see from his face that how on some days he too was very shaken. And I think it took the last bit of journalistic training in me to kind of carry on with the process of recording testimonies of survivors of violence, Hindu survivors of violence and atrocities in Bangladesh. It was a very difficult task for the both of us, and I can't, like I said, he's like a younger brother to him, so I can't keep saying thank you to Abhishek. But I'm very happy that he was with me in the course of the journey that we took to try to understand one aspect of Bangladesh, which is how it deals with its minorities. And the picture that was painted before us was a pretty grim picture. And I agree with Abhishek that, I don't want to pat ourselves in the back, but Abhishek and I, during the course of writing the book, and also when the book was done, and when we were discussing how to talk about the book to people like you, we kind of knew that the Hasina experiment was bound to fail, you know. And Abhishek remembers, I'm sure, that we said that maybe she would not, because even after the book was written, I continued to report on Bangladesh for the print. In fact, I reported on the January 7 national elections, the elections that brought Hasina back to power. And I remember my headline very clearly, and it's almost prophetic, given what happens soon. Soon after, I think I wrote that Army League fights Army League and Sheikh Hasina wins. And I remember Abhishek and I would discuss that maybe she would not be able to complete her term, or even if she does, I mean, this situation in Bangladesh is untenable. We did not, however, know that it would be so soon that something like this mass movement would uh, take her out of power. She would have to flee from Bangladesh, and the full brunt of anti-Hindu hate and anti-India hate would hit the Hindus of Bangladesh so soon that he and I foresee. Nobody could foresee. Uh, some people in India and elsewhere, even they should say that, oh, we knew it would happen. I think most of them are lying, because the events that unfolded in August, which led to Hasina fleeing her country and coming to India, I think most people who are Bangladesh watchers, whether inside Bangladesh or outside it, could not foresee. And But what Abhishek and I could understand was, during the course of writing the book, that she's hugely unpopular. She had become hugely unpopular in her country. She was almost stealing elections, and this the it's not at all a great space for Hindus anymore, because there is palpable hate in Bangladeshi society, which during Hasina's time did not quite come to the fore, because the government was so powerful in terms of its total control, or so we thought, over the army, the paramilitary, the police, and over the official narrative of Bangladesh. But we could sense, while doing our rounds within Bangladesh, that things were not at all okay for the idea of secularism, for the safety of Hindus, for Bangladesh to remain an electoral democracy. Things were not going great for Bangladesh at all.
Yes, okay. So I'll just add one more question to this.
Yeah.
So as you mentioned, correct, that the bet which India had on Sheikh Hasina to actually somehow take care of the minorities was bound to fail. So do you think from 1947 onwards, when the first partition took place, then the second partition happened in 71, so this whole long 50 years where the Hindus of Bangladesh were the primary, the minority, were facing the brunt of the majority population of Bangladesh, and the international politics was inter politics made Hindus the victim of its game, which was played by US, India, and any other powers.
I will briefly speak on it, and then I'd request Abhishek to speak on it, because this part of it he has researched a lot. It is my view that secularism was always a very shaky idea in Bangladesh. It was an experiment that did not really fructify in the course of Bangladesh's independent history. Of course, there were certain periods of time when which were better than other periods of time. but the secularism was a beautiful idea in Bangladesh whose time did not really come. Okay, so there were times in Bangladesh's political history when secularism was completely pushed to a side. There were times in Bangladesh's political history when at least the idea was kept alive and certain measures were taken so that people did not feel like second class citizens. That's my reading of the situation. But Abhishek is somebody who has really researched on this for the book. Abhishek.
I think firstly, I would add to what you asked. For me, as a student of history, I see three partitions. When you see two partitions, I see three, because my study of partition starts with 1905, the Bengal partition. That is something we don't do. We when we research, I was talking to someone very recently as I went to Indian History Congress, and I said a lot has been said about the impact of partition on the side of Punjab, but very little has been said about Bengal, and most importantly, it should have received more attention because the partition history starts here in 1905. So the idea of the majority and minority starts from there. Eastern Bengal has always been um, uh, the majority of the majority community that we are also talking about in terms of today's politics, right? Number two, and very significantly, if you start looking at the 1971, post 1971 Bangladesh situation, um, I think there are two ways to look at the word secularism. One, if you think of secularism as and when it has been written in the constitution, it remains in the constitution. This is one side of looking at it. And the two, it is how far it has been possible for Bangladesh to have secularism in practice. Secularism in black and white and secularism in practice, I think, are two different ways of looking at it. Number one. Number two, um, it has not really been there. If you can debate historically when this was abolished from the constitution, when it was there in the constitution, but I would say, and some people think it is after the assassination of Mujibur Rahman that things started changing so drastically in Bangladesh. Things, went from bad to worse. I don't agree. Number one, it started even before the assassination of Mujibur Rahman. So many radical political parties that were prohibited, that were banned from participating in politics after Mujibur Rahman, became the face of independent Bangladesh. They were actually restored around 1973-74 when Mujibur Rahman was alive. This is number one. So this narrative that everything which is bad started in Bangladesh after the assassination of Mujibur Rahman is a narrative. I don't historically agree with this. Number one, right? Number two, um, Deepta would remember and would distinctly remember that we have also made Hindus of Bangladesh, and I'm emphasizing that point again that Deepta and me, um, we are not looking at Bangladesh in the post 5th August situation, right? So we have met people before 5th August 2024. We have met some Hindus of Bangladesh who were absolutely dissatisfied with the Hasina regime. Divda would possibly remember that there was one who told us, sitting in a cozy atmosphere of a Park Street cafeteria kind of a place. He came all the way from Bangladesh. This was our first meeting, and he told us what what bad the Hindus can have more. We are at the last part of suffering, and that was when Hasina was in power. He said, "এর থেকে খারাপ আর কিছু হতে পারে না আমাদের." So what I'm saying is, let's also come out of this narrative that things were very good before 5th August. That is my point. In fact, if you are asking that how well you know Bangladesh, I would say we don't really know Bangladesh, but we know Bangladesh um, not after 5th August 2024. And everything was not very good for the minorities of Bangladesh then. It was bad. It was possibly something that was not coming in the media. It was possibly something that the people of India are not very, in fact, in any way, I think people of India are not really concerned about it. Um, Surprisingly and sadly enough, people of West Bengal are also not really concerned about Bangladesh. They are very concerned about Bangladesh in a post 5th August situation. I don't know how have they gone into oblivion. How has this entire narrative gone into oblivion? When Divda said that we are the sons of refugee, there are millions of refugees living in West Bengal who are uprooted from their homeland, who are uprooted in 60s and 70s and 50s, and they have not talked about the people of Bangladesh. Now they talk about the fact that Bangladesh is a sovereign country. The minorities of Bangladesh have to um, take care of their situation. The country will be taking the care of the situation of the minorities, but they haven't really talked about this. But my last point on that note is the root of all this suffering actually lies in the partition. You know, and most importantly, because the two nation theory formula did not really work as efficiently as it worked in case of the western side of India. It did not really work here because one of the problems was, and that is also a chapter in our book where we talk about Jogendranath Mondol. In English, it is the Ban Parade of Jogendranath Mondol. In Bangla Bui, it is Jogener Pora Kopal. And we say that a lot of quote unquote traditionally defined lower caste Hindus, they had not left the country. They still believe that they can live in Bangla, they can live in Purva Pakistan or East Pakistan. They in fact believed, a lot of them believed, they can live in post 1971 Bangladesh. And for many of them, the situation was nothing but disillusionment, like it was for Jogendra. So the history lies in that part of the pages of history.
Yes. So, with continuing with the line that we are talking about the topic, so my next question would be: we have see, I have read Blood Island by Deepda. Okay, so that talks about the SC/ST populations which came after 71. Okay, and we have seen what has happened to them. Okay, we also see the Motuas who still live in West Bengal in refugee camps. Okay. So my question to both of you is that how the Hindus or the West Bengal state or Indian state in general has not taken a very good care of the refugees who came in 40 in 47. I think they did get a good deal, but 71 and onwards we have seen the refugees are being mistreated, not taken care of, ignored in so many ways. So what happened to the Bengali society as a whole, who could not actually honor their brothers who came as by part of persecution from East Pakistan and Bangladesh to West Bengal? This would be the first, and then to Abhishek.
It's an answer you may not like. In fact, a lot of people won't like, because it is one thing to say that, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, in articles, that look what's happening to Bangladeshi Hindus, and those are important voices. Those should be heard. Those should be encouraged. It's quite another to walk the talk, and not just as a government, but also as civil society, because it has been the experience of people like Abhishek's family and mine. My family, thankfully for us, was far, far more privileged than Abhishek's. They actually felt the brunt of partition, and they had the refugee experience in full in in all its negativity, till they turned around, and Abhishek became the academic that he became, and did so well in his career, and sort of, he's now this distinguished professor. But my family had a little more privilege than that, but that's just sheer luck. uh, but what many families endured, continues to endure, does not say much about the civil society. Forget the politics of it. uh, they are not, so you may cry, or you may say your heart is bleeding for Hindus on the other side, but when the population actually crosses border and comes here, you do not encourage them to have a life of dignity. Okay, and we have seen it time and again, irrespective of the government in power. And we don't have a coherent policy of rehabilitation of refugees if they come in such large numbers, right? Like if you see, the CA has a cutoff date, and since the current crisis, happened in Bangladesh, there has been a lot of hue and cry about extending that date to 2024, right? Currently, India is not taking refugees from Bangladesh. Okay, Hindu refugees from Bangladesh. If I'm sure you would remember that at the border there were Hindus last August, soon after Hasina left. There were Hindus wanting to cross over, and this BSF officer was telling them that please, you cannot do this. Please go back. And it was a heart wrenching sight, but that's the reality, right? Now what happens when during the course of history, several time in the course of history, when refugees in large numbers have come in, they have been sent to temporary or permanent camps, sometimes within West Bengal, sometimes far away from West Bengal, in places like Dandakarana. When some of them have come back and wanted to set up a homeland for themselves, you have massacred them. You continue to give them the cold shoulder. Many of them continue to live in houses, in houses that are not pakka houses but shanties, right? So many decades have passed by, but I think it's very easy to write. It's comparatively easy, not very easy, but it's comparatively easy to. I'd say it's very easy to write on Twitter or other social media handles. It's that much more difficult to actually research it and come up with a decent book, or come up with a decent film, documentary or fiction film. It is even more difficult to formulate a policy on how to rehabilitate refugees that are coming to your country. Beyond political rhetoric, I think this is not a this I think this is not this is one aspect where not just the political parties but also the civil society in India has failed time and again. Most of the times, refugees are left on their own. Like I said, Abhishek's family actually faced it. They overcame it to build the life that Abhishek has, his family has, but they had to do it from scratch, from less than scratch. But the state, and this is irrespective of the party in power or parties in power, the state often uh, does precious little to help refugees rebuild their lives.
Yeah, Abhishek, da.
I think I completely agree with Deepda. Just to add one point in this, and that is, I find a very interesting sort of cultural thing in West Bengal, which we don't often talk about. And that is when the people were getting uprooted in 1950s end and 60s. West Bengal was busy with its new cultural setting. When you see Ritik Ghatak's films, we essentially get a very interesting left idiom in the films and in the larger discourse of 50s and 60s. And that left idiom was doing two things very consciously, because that's what the left idiom is known to do. One is it was concentrating on the idea of class and nothing else. Class and nothing else. I repeat, caste is very important in Bengal, West Bengal scenario. It has not been talked about this. We haven't talked about caste. So they were concentrating on class. And number two, and very importantly, they were mostly banking upon the refugees who were uprooted immediately after the partition, that is around 1947, 48, 49, 50s. So um, they were the kind of refugees who were mostly educated. They had their share of wealth that they, in some parts, could also take with them when they were coming to this part. And West Bengal was fighting for these people in their cultural rhetoric, in their socio political rhetoric as well. When this was happening in West Bengal, when a new Bijoygad was coming in South Calcutta, when the South Calcutta colonies were, you know, building this Bastuhara Puripad, when UCRC, the left political party that fights for the refugees, was coming into shape, a huge chunk of the refugees were going to Dandakaranya. A huge chunk had gone for Andaman. Divya was talking about Dondokarannu. Divya knows it very well. I have spent nearly 10 days in 2024 in Dondokarannu. I'll be going again in February to Dondokarannu. I have walked extensively on Malkangiri people. You know, when for the first time I visited Malkangiri for my research in the last year, they told me, the first thing they told me, we are very, very angry about the West Bengal people. আমরা বাঙালিদের নিয়ে খুব হতাশ. And my next obvious question was why. I did know the answer though. I did know the answer, and they should be angry, I felt. But still I asked, and I learned from this journalist as well, and I asked this question, why are you so angry? And they told me that when you are happy in your own cozy West Bengal Bengali zone, you did not even take care of the fact, you did not pay heed to the fact that a lot of people were pushed outside West Bengal without any reason. Who are these people? They were
Yeah.
mostly people who were agriculturists. তারা চাষবাস করতেন. These people could not live without land. These people could not live without fertile land. And the central government and the West Bengal government at that point of time actually decided to, send them to a place which is not a fertile land, right? This was not a fertile land. They could not harvest. You read a fantastic work by Shaktipada Rajguru, which is Dondok থেকে মরিচঝাপি. It's a fascinating Bengali work. And you can see this, যে চাষিরা যখন ওখানে যাচ্ছে মালকানগিরিতে, যেখানে জল নেই, বৃষ্টি হয় না, ঝর্ণার জলে কিছুটা কাজ চলে, তারা প্রায় ফ্রাস্ট্রেটেড হয়ে যাচ্ছে। আমরা সবাই না ঋত্বিক ঘটকের, যারা শুনছেন বা শুনবেন, আমরা সবাই আমি একটি কনফারেন্সে বলছিলাম, আমরা সবাই ঋত্বিক ঘটকের সিনেমা দেখি, we get emotionally carried away when we see Nita in Meghe Dhaka Tara, that was acted by Supriya Devi perhaps. আমরা দারুণ লাগে আমাদের, আমরা দেখি নিতার চরিত্র, what a fighter Nita is. But আমরা ভুলে যাই যে নিতার বাবা ওই সিনেমা একজন মাস্টার মশাইয়ের চরিত্র প্লে করে। সে নিতার সাথে কথা বলতে বলতে শেক্সপিয়ারের নাটকের লাইন বলে, নিতা টিউশন দেয়, তার মানে নিতা পড়াশুনো জানে। What about those women who were not literate? What about those women যারা পড়াশুনো জানতো না? আমরা কেউ তাদের কথা বলিনি। লেফট রিটরিক আমাদের শিখিয়েছে, মণিকুন্তলা সেনের কথা আমরা বলেছি। ইউনো আমরা আমরা ঋত্বিক ঘটকের সিনেমায় নিতাকে দেখেছি, কিন্তু রানাঘাটের একটা ক্যাম্পে, which was a women's camp, সেখানে দুটো ক্যাম্প ছিল, একটা পড়াশোনা জানা মহিলাদের, যেখানে মূলত আপার কাস্ট ওমেনরা থাকতো, একটা কম পড়াশোনা জানা বা পড়াশোনা না জানা মহিলাদের, যেখানে লোয়ার কাস্ট ওমেনরা থাকতো। আপার কাস্ট ওমেনরা প্রাইভেট টিউশন দিচ্ছে ক্যাম্প থেকে বেরিয়ে, এই ডকুমেন্টস আমি পেয়েছি। আর লোয়ার কাস্ট ওমেনরা পেটের দায়ে, রাইট, আমি খুব দায়িত্ব নিয়ে বলছি, আমার কাছে যেহেতু তার আর্কাইভাল সোর্সেস রয়েছে, তারা প্রস্টিটিউশনের মতো জায়গায় চলে যাচ্ছে। গভর্নমেন্ট তাদের দিকে কোনো খেয়াল করেনি। ফলে আমরা অসম্ভব ইনডিফারেন্ট ছিলাম এই রিফিউজি হিস্ট্রি নিয়ে। আজকে এই বাংলাদেশের মানুষদের নিয়ে হঠাৎ করে এই কান্নাটা হলে, দিস উইল নট বি ফেল্ট এক্সপিরিয়েন্স, নাইদার দিস উইল বি অ্যান এক্সপিরিয়েন্স দ্যাট দে রিয়েলি ওয়ান্ট টু রিমেম্বার। বাংলায় বলে কুমিরের কান্না, সো আমার মনে হয় অনেকের ক্ষেত্রে এটা একটা কুমিরের কান্নার মতো ব্যাপার আর কি। ফলে আমরা রিফিউজিদের দিকে দিন, এবং আন্দামানে যাদেরকে পাঠানো হয়েছিল তাদেরকে ক্যাটেগরিক্যালি বলা হতো, কাশীপুর ক্যাম্প থেকে, কলকাতায় কাশীপুর ক্যাম্প থেকে যখন লোকজনকে নিয়ে যাওয়া হচ্ছে, তাদের উপরে ইনস্ট্রাকশন আসছে, এগেইন আই হ্যাভ সিন দ্য ডকুমেন্ট, তাদের উপরে ইনস্ট্রাকশন আসছে যে ব্রাহ্মণ অ্যালাউড নয়, চ্যাটার্জি ব্যানার্জি, আমি কোট আনকোট বলছি, চ্যাটার্জি ব্যানার্জিকে আন্দা যাবে না। তাহলে কাদেরকে নেওয়া যাবে? ট্র্যাডিশনালি ডিফাইন্ড লোয়ার কাস্ট, এবং তাদের হাতের তালু দেখে তাদেরকে নিয়ে যাওয়া হতো। কেননা হাতের তালু যদি শক্ত হয়, ইট মিনস দে হ্যাভ আ স্টাডি স্ট্রাকচার ইন a way which means they are agriculturists, তারা চাষবাস করে মাটিতে। তাই এই ধরনের অলমোস্ট ইনহ্যাবিটেবল ল্যান্ডকে, মানে যেটা হ্যাবিটেবল নয় রাদার, সেরকম একটা ল্যান্ডকে কি করে আমরা বসবাসযোগ্য করে তুলতে পারি তার চেষ্টা করব। ফলে যেটা দীপদাব শুরু করেছিল, একটা বড় ন্যারেটিভ কাস্টের রয়েছে, কিন্তু আমরা দীর্ঘদিনের একটা লেফট ইডিয়ামের মধ্যে ছিলাম, ফলে আমরা কাস্টকে প্রায় ভুলে গেছিলাম বাংলা ন্যারেটিভ থেকে, যেটা ওই সময় অন্তত খুব ইম্পর্টেন্ট ছিল।
Deepda, you want to say something?
No, I agree with him. What I said was generic about how India in general has failed about the refugee experience, and it is not just in Bengal; it's in other places also. But I think since he mentioned leftist narrative, I think there's a special place in hell for the Bhadralok and his for the Bhadralok due to his hypocrisy. I think the kind of things they say in public and what they practice in private are so vastly different. In fact, they're almost polar opposites to each other. So the first flush of refugees that came when India was partitioned and from the east were mostly upper castes. Okay, so they could rehabilitate themselves better than the waves of refugees who were mostly lower castes who came later. So you what you went through yourself, and you were a little advantaged because you had the advantage of time, education, and also sympathy of Bengali Hindus from this side of the border. You did not extend the same sympathy towards fellow refugees who are coming at a slightly advanced stage in time. So this is casteist behavior at its worst. And for left to leftist, by left I don't just mean a political party, but for the since the narrative at that time building was done by the left to completely ignore it from societal discourse, from history books, and let people from the lower castes who came from that side, lower caste slash classes who came from that, so from came over from the other side, to leave them at the margins, and often worse than that. I think it's horrible. I mean, Blood Island is just one example, but like Abhishek said, that Blood Island, even Blood Island was not talked about. Yeah, Marichapi massacre. Who spoke about except for academic journals and one fictional account in Amitav Ghosh's book? Who spoke about Marichapi? I keep telling this everywhere. Abhishek mentioned one book right now. It's not as if books were not written. Books were written in Bengali. Those books magically vanished from bookshelves.
Yes, yes, yes. That is the point. Yes,
you know
absolutely.
I'm happy, of course, because it's my work, but I'm also very lucky, and also I had the advantage of language, and also the fact that I was a Delhi journalist when Blood Island came out. I was India Today editor, so all of those things played a part, right? But if
Just
I
to
don't
just
know,
to
but if
substantiate, just to substantiate Deepda, I just want to
yeah,
mention one point. I have myself got a book. It is in my collection. It is about Morichapi. তুষার বাবু বলে একজনের লেখা, I have forgotten the surname. It is there in the market, but nobody knows how these books vanished from the bookshelves. I mean, nobody read
see
this
with
book.
yeah, so with me they couldn't do anything because I had my own privileges, right? I was a Delhi
Yeah.
editor. The book was by HarperCollins. It was written in English. Delhi media
Yes.
immediately picked it up. There were reviews from Hindustan Times to Khalij Times. Abhishek did a fantastic review, if I remember, for Anandabazar Potrika. But so there was suddenly so much talk about it that left could not do anything. Okay, but it's not as if books were not written. Whatever their quality, whatever the quality of the books in terms of research or in terms of their academic or storytelling merits, that's a different point. But many of those are brutal truths. They're honest accounts, first person accounts often, which is why if you have read Blood Island, what I have done is the first chapter of the book, okay, which is Jyotirmoy Mondol's story, is actually a translation of a book of his. Most of it is a translation of a novella written by him called Shukchand, which is his autobiographical account. Now, Shukchand was again a novel. I mean, you talk about Hungry Tide, but Shukchand is a novella written by a Morichapi survivor on what happened just before, on the whole, what Abhishek mentioned, name of the book, from Dandok to Morichapi. It's actually a novella on Dandok to Morichapi, which is an autobiographical account. It's the story of him and his father and his mother and people around him. Only, and even the names, he just doesn't introduce his name. But even the names are not fictional. It's written like a work of fiction, but it's the hard, honest truth, right? It vanished. I had a copy. He had a few copies. It just vanished from the market. So who did this, right? It's Bengali
How many, how
society who.
many, how many of us, how many of us have heard of the book called Aprokashito Morijjati? This is the name
Yeah,
of the book. You know who wrote this book? This was written by the son of Jogendranath Mondol. Can you imagine? Jogendranath Mondol, who was the first law minister of Pakistan, his son wrote a book called Aprokashito Morijjati. How many of us, are acquainted with this book? I mean, জানি না কতজন? How many? Very, I think very few in number. So the politics of language is also very brutal because Deep Halder
yeah.
wrote the book in English. It was published published by an international publisher. In fact, let me tell you this. Let me say a very debatable line. I wonder if this book called Being Hindu in Bangladesh was actually written in Bangla for the first time, like Bangladeshi Hindu Bangladesh. I wonder if we could actually make this book as loved as it is now.
না, তুই আমাকে
I
একটা
I
কথা
think
বল না।
no.
তুই আমার একটা কথা বল না, অভিষেক। The fact that you wrote the review of Blood Island for Anandabazar Patrika, you also got you of course like the book and you wanted to write a review, but you also wrote the review because the book had become very popular, right? Suppose I had written the book in Bangla,
No, no. Yes, yes.
it
Because
would
আমার
it would have
প্রথম
completely
কথা
vanished.
হচ্ছে যে না, because আমি বলছি আনন্দবাজার পত্রিকা is the the most known newspaper in Bangla in West Bengal, right? তো ওরা কিন্তু মানে আমি চাইলেই রিভিউ লিখতেও দেবে না। ইনফ্যাক্ট যখন যোগাযোগ করেছিলেন, দে টোল্ড মি যে there is a new book. ওরা ইউজুয়ালি কি করে যে বইগুলোকে পাঠায়, মানে যে রিভিউ করবে। তো দে টোল্ড মি যে একটা নতুন বই বেরিয়েছে বাই দীপ হালদার, তোমাকে কপিটা পাঠাচ্ছি, তুমি সেটা রিভিউ করতে পারবে কিনা দেখো। তো I told them যে I have already read the book. So they were very happy that the reviewer has already read the book. ইউজুয়ালি হয় ওরা আগে পরে বইটা পাঠায়, তারপরে রিভিউয়ার পড়ে এবং করে। আমি বললাম না না, আমি রিভিউ করে ফেলেছি বিকজ I was about to submit my dissertation at যাদবপুর ইউনিভার্সিটি দেন। আমার ততদিনে দীপ হালদারের ব্লাড আইল্যান্ড অন্তত 4 বার পড়া হয়ে গেছে। তো আমি তো পড়েই ফেলেছিলাম। The book had already started making its presence felt, you know. So they came to me and said, write a review of this book. But, the point is, Deep Halder has received enough criticism for writing the book. But fortunately, most of the time he lives in Delhi. So he doesn't really get to know a lot of criticism directly. I stay here. So when I wrote the review of Blood Island, it was not my book. I wrote a review. And you can't even imagine writing this review, you know, nearly after 41 years of the actual incident. There also, I received not too much of accolades in Bengal, but a real sense of criticism because they told me, because I also added my share of knowledge and archival research in the review. They said this is all agenda. You know, the question was an agenda by whom? I would say I really loved the last part of the Blood Island. I have told this to Divda time and again. That's how power operates. That's possibly not because of one political party. That is not like one political party. That's also like how power operates. There was a section in the book যেখানে দীপদা লিখছে যে it's possibly like this, যে এখনো যদি কেউ মরিচঝাপির দিকে যায় সে দেখতে পাবে যে পুলিশ সেদিকে একটা বন্দুক রেখে বসে আছে, মানে সিকিউরিটির মতো কোথাও একটা ব্যাপার, পাহারা দেওয়ার মতো। The question is মরিচঝাপিতে কেউ আর থাকে না এখন। মরিচঝাপিতে কোনো রিফিউজি নেই, মরিচঝাপিতে আর কোনো কোনো ইকোলজিক্যাল ব্যালেন্স নষ্ট হচ্ছে না। তাহলে কার দিকে বন্দুক তাক করে কে বসে থাকে? দ্যাটস এক্স্যাক্টলি হাউ পাওয়ার অপারেটস। আমার মরিচঝাপি গিয়ে যেটা মনে হয়েছিল যে, এবং কোথাও একটা মাথায় রাখতে হবে, মরিচঝাপি, দীপ হালদারের মরিচঝাপি নিয়ে লেখা বই ব্লাড আইল্যান্ড এবং আমাদের এই বইটা কোথাও একটা কিন্তু এক সূত্রে বাঁধা, বিকজ এই দুটো বইয়ের জেনেসিসটা কিন্তু 47, দুটো বইয়ের জেনেসিসটা কিন্তু ওপার বাংলায় কিছু লোকের থেকে যাওয়া। দুটো বইয়ের জেনেসিসটা কিন্তু সিক্সটিজ এর এবং সেভেন্টিজ এর অনেক রিফিউজির আবার আসতে শুরু করা, যাদেরকে ভারত তখন, আমি মাঝখানে একবার ভাবছিলাম এবং দু এক জায়গায় লিখেওছি এটা নিয়ে, যে ইটস মোর লাইক, মানে একটা একটা পিএইচডি আছে বিদেশে সম্ভবত করেছিলেন নীলাঞ্জনা চ্যাটার্জি, মিড নাইটস আনওয়ান্টেড চিলড্রেন বা এরকম একটা কিছু নামে। আমার মনে হচ্ছিল মিড নাইটস আনওয়ান্টেড চিলড্রেন দলিতদের ক্ষেত্রে হয়তো বলা হয়, মানে রিফিউজিদের ক্ষেত্রে। আমার মনে হয় দলিত রিফিউজিদের ক্ষেত্রে শব্দটা হচ্ছে মিড নাইটস ইললেজিটিমেট চিলড্রেন। তাদেরকে আমরা কেউ ন্যারেটিভে লেজিটিমেট করতেই পারিনি, তাই যা হওয়ার হয়েছিল। মানে দীপদা নিজে যেখানে কলকাতায় থাকে, যে চত্বরে থাকে, সেখানে প্রচুর রিফিউজিরা বাস করে। তাদেরকে আমরা ভুলেই গেছি তারা রিফিউজি কোথাও একটা, বিকজ দে হ্যাড দিস কালচারাল সর্ট অফ প্রিভিলেজ, যেটা তাদেরকে মেইন স্ট্রিম হতে খুব সাহায্য করেছিল। আমি যেখানে থেকেছি ছোট থেকে, সেই জায়গাটাতে কিন্তু চিরকাল লোকে রিফিউজিদের জায়গা বলেই দেখেছে, যেখানে মূলত লোয়ার কাস্ট রিফিউজিরা থেকেছে, তারা পড়াশোনা করতে সুযোগ পায়নি বা কিছু।
Yeah. So thank you, Deepda. Thank you, Abhishek da, for this chance for us to get you, both of you. I think first time you are both of you are on the same platform, if I'm not wrong.
We have hardly stayed in different
Possibly.
cities, possibly same. Yeah. After the launch of our book, I think
Yeah.
possibly the first time. So thank you for that. Thank you for
Yeah.
getting us together.
Actually, I was like working with you, the timing, other thing for a whole month to get you, both of you, on the same time.
I'm
So it was,
I have no work. Abhishek is a busy academic, so it's Abhishek's time,
precious,
which is
very
happening.
precious little.
No one would believe a journalist doesn't have work and an academic has work. An academic just sits back, relax, and reads books. And a journalist gives you news.
Yes. So
Thank you
thank
so
you,
much.
both
Thank you
of
so much.
you. Yeah, no,
Thank
actually,
you.
I have to thank you, both of you, for being there, for writing this book. And I have small request, both of you. Like, if you could give us the books that you have collected, if you have the copies, or you can tell us. I have a person who in Kolkata who can buy the books. So what I will do is I will read the books on my like we read books in our streams. Apart from doing interviews and book discussions, we read physical books in our stream. So if by any chance, if you can give us the publisher whom can buy the book, the on Murid Chapi that you had mentioned, or if you have the copies, you can give it to me if it's possible. Then we will read those Bengali books in our live stream as well, to our audience, to actually, at least that can be done from our end, at least.
Surely.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'll get in touch with you on those books later. And
Yeah.
thank you again to both of you for giving us a precious time. And I would again request all of you, everybody who's listening to this, go ahead and buy the book. This is very important, especially this specific book, Blood Island. Okay, so this is something which is, at least people know about this specific book because it was written pretty recently. But Island is one of the like best books in terms of non-fiction, where he has wrote something which was happened 30, 40 years ago. The research, kind of research he has done, both of them, it's beyond world. So go ahead, buy this book as well as the English book if you can get it. English book, the Hindus of Bangladesh. And unfortunately, the Bengali translation that we see here, it is not available online. So, but you can send an email to us. So you'll find our email address. Admin, could you just put our email address in the chat. Uh, yeah. So so if you want this Bengali book, do send us an email. We have 10 copies of this book procured with the publisher. So we will give the book to you free of charge, no money required. Just send us an email on our email ID, navavimarsh@gmail.com. So we will send the book to you if you want to read it. So this is for the audience who are listening now. Okay, do send us an email with your details. We will send the book to. So the 10 copies available with us that we had procured from the publisher. And also you can buy the English version, Hindus of Bangladesh, and also Murid Chapi, Blood Island, on the online itself. So thank you, Abhishek Da. Thank you, Deep Da, for your time.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Jai Sri Ram,
Thank you
Vande
so much.
Mataram.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.